What My Cottage is. My Cottage is Benedict Bridgerton's country home, a quiet, private place outside London where he takes Sophie Beckett to hide her after rescuing her from an abusive employer. It becomes a safe haven for Sophie, and the emotional turning point of their relationship. What happens there? 1. Benedict rescues Sophie and brings her there. Sophie has been badly mistreated by her employer. Benedict intervenes, helps her escape, and takes her to My Cottage so she can recover safely. She is injured, exhausted, and emotionally broken when she arrives. 2. Sophie recovers and becomes part of the household. At My Cottage, Sophie rests and heals. She helps around the house and cooks. She forms a warm bond with the servants there. For the first time in a long while, Sophie feels safe, respected, and valued. 3. Benedict and Sophie grow emotionally close. Living together in this peaceful, domestic setting lets them talk honestly, laugh together, share quiet moments, meals, walks, conversations, build emotional intimacy rather than just romantic tension. This is where Benedict truly falls in love with Sophie as a person, not just as a mysterious woman from the masquerade. Starts wanting a real life with her, not just a passionate affair. 4. Benedict proposes, but with a problem. Benedict asks Sophie to stay with him, not as his wife, but as his mistress. This is the emotional conflict of the book. Benedict loves her, but he believes he cannot marry someone of her social class. Sophie loves him, but she refuses to be kept, because of her pride, trauma, and values. So My Cottage becomes the place where love deepens, but the central emotional rift appears. 5. Sophie leaves My Cottage. Because she will not accept being his mistress, Sophie eventually leaves, even though it breaks both their hearts. This leads into the later separation, Sophie's imprisonment, and ultimately the resolution where Benedict realizes he must choose her fully or lose her. Why My Cottage matters in the story. Narratively, My Cottage represents safety, emotional honesty, the possibility of a simple, happy life together. It shows the reader what Benedict and Sophie could have, which makes their later pain and separation more powerful. In short, at My Cottage, Benedict saves Sophie. They fall deeply in love in a peaceful domestic setting, but their difference in social status creates the central conflict that forces them apart. So how things happen at My Cottage. Arrival at My Cottage. Benedict brings Sophie there after rescuing her. Sophie is injured, weak, and frightened. She expects to be dismissed or sent away once she's safe. Instead, Benedict insists she stay and recover. This is the first time someone of his class treats her as worthy of care rather than as a servant or object. Emotionally, Sophie feels gratitude, confusion, and growing attachment. Benedict feels protective, fascinated, and increasingly tender toward her. Domestic life together. Once Sophie is stronger. She helps cook and clean, because she wants to contribute, not because she's ordered. They eat meals together. They take walks. They talk late into the evening. This creates a married couple atmosphere without the marriage. They begin to tease each other, share personal stories, build trust. This is where Benedict truly falls in love, not just desire, but affection, admiration, and emotional reliance. The emotional confession and proposal. Eventually Benedict tells Sophie that he wants her to stay with him permanently. But his offer is not marriage, but to be his mistress. From Benedict's point of view, he thinks society makes marriage impossible. He believes offering protection, comfort, and a lifelong place with him is generous and loving. From Sophie's point of view, being a mistress means being hidden, disposable, and dishonored. It reminds her of how powerless she's always been. It threatens her self-worth. So she refuses. This is the emotional peak of My Cottage. Benedict is hurt and confused. Sophie is heartbroken but firm. They love each other but want incompatible things. The farewell. After the refusal, the mood shifts from warmth to sadness. Sophie prepares to leave. Benedict is frustrated and doesn't understand why love isn't enough. When Sophie leaves, it is quiet, restrained, and devastating rather than dramatic. Both believe they may never see each other again. Why this section is so emotionally powerful? Because the reader has just seen how good they are together, how happy they could be, how close they came to a shared life. And then it's taken away, not by lack of love, but by social reality and personal values. Bottom line. My Cottage is where Benedict and Sophie fall fully in love, and where they lose each other because love alone isn't enough without respect, equality, and courage. What the Netflix series has set up, changed, or removed so far, and what that means for a future adaptation. My Cottage. Book versus Netflix. Does My Cottage exist on Netflix? In the book, My Cottage is a physical place, Benedict's country home. It is where Sophie heals, lives, and falls in love with him. It functions as the emotional heart of their romance. On Netflix, My Cottage has not appeared yet. Benedict does not have an established private domestic space in the show. His story so far is focused on art, identity, class discomfort, casual relationships, feeling directionless. Meaning, Netflix is postponing the safe domestic romance phase until his season. Keycap 2. Benedict's personality. Book versus show. This matters because in the book, My Cottage exposes Benedict's blindness to class power. In the show, he is already aware of it, so the conflict must change. Keycap 3. The Mistress Proposal. In the book is central emotional conflict. Benedict sincerely thinks offering Sophie protection without marriage is loving. Sophie refuses to preserve her dignity. On Netflix, a mistress storyline would feel outdated, morally uncomfortable, out of sync with show Benedict's values. Most fans and critics believe Netflix will not use the mistress plot, or will radically soften or replace it. Possible replacements Netflix may use: fear of public scandal, threat of ruining Sophie socially, legal identity issues about her birth, external class oppression, rather than Benedict being the obstacle. Keycap 4. Sophie's Role and Agency. Book Sophie is passive in circumstance, strong in values, her power is moral refusal. Netflix Sophie, likely, will be written as more outspoken, more assertive, more socially conscious, less willing to accept injustice quietly. So instead of, I refuse to be your mistress, it might become, I refuse to build a life that erases me. Same theme, modernized language and framing. Keycap 5. The Emotional Function of My Cottage. Netflix tends to move from internal moral conflict to external social conflict, from quiet heartbreak to visible drama. In summary, in the book version, My Cottage is a private emotional bubble. Benedict unintentionally hurts Sophie through class blindness. The conflict is intimate and internal. However, for the Netflix version, My Cottage will probably be replaced with a different private space. The class conflict will be externalized. Benedict will not be the primary moral obstacle. Sophie will be more empowered from the start. In short, the book uses My Cottage to show that love without equality is not enough. Netflix will likely use a similar setting to show that love can survive inequality, but must fight society together rather than each other.